The email subject line burned through my screen. Attendance revoked. Summit 2025. For a moment I thought it was spam. A glitch. A cruel joke from IT. But as my eyes tracked the company logo and the formal sign-off, per executive decision, my stomach dropped through the floor. I blinked, reading it again. My name. My credentials. My event, the summit I had spent 11 months organizing. And then the final line. You are not authorized to attend due to concerns regarding internal conduct and professionalism. My breath caught. Internal conduct? I'd worked for Astravine for 9 years. I'd built our PR division from the ground up. I trained half the people attending that summit. And now suddenly I was unprofessional? I stared at my reflection in the dark computer screen. My lipstick was fading, my eyes rimmed red from another late night perfecting slide decks for a conference I was now banned from. The betrayal began quietly. So quietly I didn't hear it over my own exhaustion. It started 2 months ago when Daniel, my team lead, my mentor, and yes, the man I was stupid enough to fall for, began avoiding eye contact during meetings. He'd been distant before, sure, but this was different. He no longer lingered in my office doorway after hours. He no longer texted me jokes about client disasters. When I finally asked if something was wrong, he'd smiled tightly and said, "Everything's fine, Maya. You're just too intense sometimes. You need to trust others more." That word trust stung like a splinter. I didn't realize then that he'd already sold me out. 2 days after the email, HR called me in for a clarification meeting. Their office smelled of stale coffee and fear. The HR director, a woman who always smiled too wide, slid a folder across the table. "Anonymous complaints," she said. "Concerns about your behavior toward Daniel Hayes." My pulse roared in my ears. Daniel? He's the one who... "We're not here to assign blame, Maya," she interrupted. "We're here to ensure a safe, professional environment." Her tone was smooth, practiced. She didn't care that I was shaking, that I could barely breathe. Inside the folder were printed emails, snippets of correspondence, clipped out of context. A joke I'd made about Daniel's presentation skills. A late-night message where I'd said, "You make the stress worth it." God, it looked bad. But what gutted me was the signature on the HR memo. Daniel Hayes, Senior Executive Advisor. He'd submitted the report himself. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment, every laugh, every shared secret. The night we stayed late polishing a pitch deck, the wine-fueled confessions about his failing marriage, the way he'd once whispered, "You're the only one who really gets me." And now I was the liability. I drafted a dozen emails. Deleted them all. Anger came in waves, sharp, clean, then hollow. I wanted to scream. To expose him. To burn the entire company to ash. But all I could do was sit in the dark and whisper, "Why?" The next morning I got another email. From Daniel Hayes. Subject: "Please don't make this harder than it already is." He wrote, "Maya, this isn't personal. There were rumors going around and I had to act before they reached upper management. It's better this way. Please understand." Better for who? I almost replied, almost poured out every ounce of rage I had. But something in his wording stopped me cold. Before they reached upper management. So he wasn't covering for the company. He was covering for someone else. I spent the next 3 hours digging through old email chains, shared folders, and message logs. Daniel had been forwarding my internal communications for months to a private address that didn't match any company domain. It wasn't random. It was strategic. And when I finally traced the domain back, my throat tightened. It belonged to Eleanor Chambers, the new vice president of corporate affairs. His wife. The realization hit me like a car crash. The rumors. The concerns. The carefully edited messages. It was all orchestrated. He'd weaponized me. Used our relationship to gain insider information, project plans, sponsorship lists, press contacts. Then painted me as the unstable subordinate once his wife took over the board. A perfect transfer of power. Perfect betrayal. But I wasn't going down quietly. I spent the weekend collecting everything, timestamps, metadata, screenshots. I drafted an email to the company board. But instead of sending it, I waited. I wanted maximum damage. So I scheduled it. Time to send automatically at 10 a.m. on the opening day of the summit. Right when Daniel and Eleanor would be standing on stage, smiling into cameras, boasting about integrity-driven leadership. The email's subject line was simple: evidence of internal misconduct. Forwarded for transparency. Inside was everything: the forwarded messages, the timeline, the proof that Daniel had leaked confidential strategy to an external party, his wife, before she joined the company. At 10:12 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications. First, a text from my old assistant. They stopped the live stream. Security escorted Daniel out. Then another. Eleanor's resigning. The board is furious. You did this, didn't you? I didn't reply. I just sat by the window, coffee growing cold in my hands, watching the morning light slide across the floor. For the first time in months, I didn't feel small. 2 days later, I got a call from the interim CEO. Maya, he said, his voice cautious but kind. We owe you an apology. Your name's been cleared. The board wants to discuss reinstatement. I almost laughed. You think I want to come back? He hesitated. We could really use your leadership. I looked at the city skyline, at the reflection of a woman who had finally stopped begging for respect. Then maybe, I said softly, you should have thought of that before you banned me. That night I opened my laptop, typed a new email and hit send. Not to Astravine. Not to Daniel. To a rival company's CEO. The subject line read, Proposal. Let's build something better. Moral. Betrayal doesn't end you. It introduces you to the version of yourself that refuses to be silenced.